Aloha. Today, I wanted to make I don't know if it's going to be a quick video. It's just something that I wanted to expand upon because I had been thinking about it. And I knew that if I started talking about it, that I would get more information as I'm talking about it. So basically, it's the question of not only the question of if a tree falls in the wood, would it make a sound? And how that relates to the experience of consciousness in relation to your conscious and subconscious reality, in a sense that when you are asleep and you have dreams, you're in your subconscious reality, and you can have lucid dreams or become aware of dreams that you are still you. You can still perceive people. Some people even take on different forms. Like in one of my dreams, I met my pet parrot, African gray parrot, Kenya, in a human form. She walked in the door, and as she was walking through the door, I knew that was her, and I was actually going to see her in a human form, and it was so crazy. I just woke up. It was like so strange to me that I woke up. But not only that, like you have dreams like when you have with people who've passed on, your ancestors, I've had dreams with my grandfather when he was younger, or like my little brother when he was younger, and just different people who are in your lives in different forms, kind of like how, if you've seen Inception, the dream realm, there's this discussion where they say that you can't recreate a dream exactly the same. Like the location can't be exactly how a real life location. It has to be something different. So that's how dreams are, and it's relative to the experiencer. Like we are experiencing a dream, something like, but the question is, who are you that's experiencing that experience? Like what are you? What is the mechanism of the experiencer? That's my question in reference to the infinite plane of existence, how I perceive the flat earth realm, and also goes back to the question of if a tree falls in the woods, would it make, if nobody was around, would it make a sound? Now, my answer to that would be that, which made me laugh and which triggered this video, is that who's experiencing the sound? So you say nobody's around, but that means your nobody is subject to who? People, right? So you don't take into account animal consciousness, you don't take into account non-physical beings, you don't take into account and how they experience sound. Like some animals don't experience color. These are all vibrations. So if a tree falls in the wood, that tree that's falling is actually alive, or it was alive, and still has some kind of life force energy. So some people are gonna be like, "Oh, you're going off," like whatever. I'm just rolling with this now. So we see from the outside in instead of from the inside out. That's my main perspective in relation to like dreams and this question, and in relation to the infinite plane of existence. We never really take into account the inside out perspective, largely because the same way people who have the cognitive dissonance when they're approached with flat earth can't even entertain the idea, in fact, go into a defense mechanism. That's because they are presented with some ideas of experience that are of another version. They perceive it from another version of external experience. They don't perceive it from an internal experience, which ultimately is how I see what going into the flat earth realm really is. You're going into, from the outside linear perspective, you're going into a more balanced and rounded, no pun intended, form of experiencing your reality, instead of linear, so-called logical thought. You're intuitively experiencing or feeling out what it is that you are perceiving as your reality from the inside out, not from what some book or some scientist or somewhat astronomer or some picture tells you. Like that interview with Bill Nye, I just put in another video where he says, the evidence is right here. Like, how did we get this picture? He points out at a picture of supposedly a globe Earth on his wall, and he calls it evidence. So this is how that's just another linear form of interpreting our information. So back to the experience-er. So this is the inside out. This is what I'm perceiving as the soul perspective, that another version of external perspectives of the internal spaces, stuff like religious dogma. It's like it's just another form of, ultimately, when it's taken to the extreme, hypnosis. It's like you don't even really have to believe all of this stuff that you are listening to in the church. You just have to go to church. You just have to read the stuff, repeat the patterns, listen to the preacher, and then that's what makes you a good Christian or a good whatever ism that you are. There are a lot of people like that too. So the reality, how I'm seeing it, is it's based upon the experience-er every single time. As collective as interpreting the flat earth realm is, it's also an individual perspective. It's also very individualistic how you experience this reality. Yes, there are things that there is a science to it. There, just like in alchemy, the alchemy is a balance between true science and the soul understanding. This is why the control grid, just like separating, like beating down the feminine aspect, beating down the soul aspect in the alchemical experience that the human experience is another way to divide and conquer us. So racism is just another subcategory of separating the masculine from the feminine. Racism is separating the people from another micro category, like another label that does have a purpose. It does have a meaning. It is beautifully on purpose, all of these things. But when it's watered down and labeled into this linear perspective, then something gets lost. And this is what this whole New World agenda and scientism ultimately wants to do. It wants to tell you that you're a monkey and you just came from nothingness, the Big Bang, some blobs turned into dinosaurs and then monkeys and then you. And then now we're so amazing today because we created an iPhone 7 and nobody else before us created an iPhone 7. Tyrannosaurus Rex, he can't make an iPhone 7 because his claws were too tiny. He got tiny little hands and he can't do that. So, we're amazing. And of course, the primitive and savage indigenous and aboriginal people, they were just living with sticks and stones in the rainforest, and they were dancing around fires and talking to their ancestors, and doing rain dances and bean dances and summer solstice dances, and they had no idea what's going on in the scientific community, so they were just primitive and savage. So this is how we get separated from the soul on an alchemical level. That taken to the extreme, the racism and all this other stuff is just, and then taken even further to extremes are the gay agenda. So that's like the LGBT agenda of watering down, another form of watering down the divine masculine and the divine feminine, creating more chaos on the internal subconscious space without even realizing it. People are just thinking based upon what they were told to think. So the external perspectives get turned into internal perspectives based upon what the external subconscious mind conditioning program has formulated for the people to think that they're thinking. So they're thinking for us. This is what the scientism community is, the mainstream media, the university system, politics. It's thinking for you. And then when you think when they're thinking for you from a linear perspective, then everything that is non-linear, non-physical inside of you takes on the experiencer experiences their non-linear, non-physical perspectives from a linear perspective, and it doesn't work. Everything gets lost, everything gets chaotic and confused, and people start, that's how you have the internal war, the internal fight with yourself that allows people to turn aggressive or emotional, people struggling with their sexuality, people struggling with their culture, people struggling with their history. It's the constant struggle that is made on purpose or generated on purpose to allow people to be insecure so you can be codependent on the mind conditioners who created the chaos to begin with, who created this, so you can lean on them as your savior, whether it's the religious dogmatic perspectives where you just constantly default to that, or the scientism religion where you constantly default to, oh, well, when the boat goes over the curve, and when I see a boat go over the curve, that means it's round, and all this other stuff. And so these are all just religious dogmas that are at their ultimate space designed to install a linear perspective that creates empty people, half living empty people that experience their reality from a linear perspective at best, because that even those linear perspectives are unstable. So like this is why people don't even they don't know too much about the universe or everything. We leave it to the controllers to tell us about this. So even though you're confident that the earth is a sphere, you're not really confident, because you're only confident because somebody else is in charge of you. They've taken dominance over your universe. So this goes back to my original question of, or topic of, the experiencer. And the experiencer is experiencing this reality from a vicarious perspective, an outside influence, because we are too weak or too primitive or too savage or too poor to get an education to get like the degree that tells us we're smart, or we're impoverished. All this stuff that's by design created for us to feel, think, and act and worship a certain way. And ultimately, this goes to the fabric of the whole, when people ask about like, what's the intention of lying to people about the flat earth? What is the motive for the heliocentric model? Like, what is it? So it's not like a linear physical thing as much as it's a non-physical way of experiencing your reality. So when you are experiencing your reality from a synthetic version of reality, you are literally severing your connection to your consciousness. And this is another reason why I connected to like why we don't dream, is because we are literally living in, why many people don't dream is because we are living in a synthetic consciousness. And because I remember when I stopped dreaming, and a lot of people it's for the same way, it's right around 5 to 7 years old. That's kindergarten to second grade. And that's when you are formally locking yourself into the physical reality. That's when the conditioning hits, and you start to convince yourself of this reality. Because you want to go to school, you want to go with your friends. You're also shutting yourself down because you know that you have 11 more years of this mind conditioning public education bullshit. So it's kind of like the Stockholm syndrome. You start to love your oppressor. You start to love the experience. And in that, on like a non-physical perspective, when you do that, there's a side effect to that. There's something that happens as a result of doing that. And one of the results that I'm seeing is that we lose connection with our dreams, which is losing connection with your subconscious reality, which locks you into the linear conscious reality, which many people can see, which I see as the masculine program or the masculine design. The linear perspective, the hard, straight and forward, the thought in reference to knowledge. So knowledge is this non-linear, infinite thing, when a thought is a collection of pieces of that knowledge to create a linear experience, or a sentence, or even a book. A book is still a linear thing. The only thing that really is non-linear is the everything that is everything. When you're talking about everything, that's the most non-linear thing. So how you experience something is linear. So back to the question of when a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound if nobody's around? My question is like, who's saying that it doesn't make a sound, and who are you saying is not around? Because there is an animal consciousness. There is a tree, a tree consciousness, or the plant kingdom consciousness. So, and not to mention the energy that is that tree. So if that tree falls, that's my main point. The tree that falls is the experiencer of that sound. It's like arrogant in a sense to say that nobody's around. Well, the fucking tree is around. He's falling down, or she, whatever that is falling down. So yes, it does make a sound to that tree. That tree made a sound. So the question itself is null and void because you're saying nobody's around. But if a tree is falling, so that goes back to the point of my original point is like, get to the flat earth stuff. So the flat earth in reference to the infinite plane of existence, the experiencer, and control of the experience. So the control of the experience is based upon the experiencer. So if you're trapped in a gang mentality, that is your consciousness. If you're trapped in a banking mentality, that is your consciousness. If you are trapped in a political mentality, that's your consciousness. If you're trapped in a dogma, that's your experience, that's your consciousness. So if we are trapped in a globe model consciousness or experience, then that will be our consciousness. And if that is completely synthetic and everything that is based upon your reality has to reflect that synthetic foundation. And if you are trying to convince yourself of something that is largely an illusion, then you will have no roots. You will have no foundation. And that's when you can be controlled. That's when you can become a slave. And this is how you can maintain the haves and the have-nots. So it's not so much about there's nobody around to hear that tree. If all of these people are trees and all of these people are falling in the forest, then it's not about the people who are looking at those people fall in the forest. It's about the consciousness and the senses of those people who are falling. Yes, they are going to make a sound in that forest, and it doesn't matter. It's not really truly in reference to anybody else. I mean, it is in a sense from the collective perspective. But that's only one side of the story. The other side of the story is the experiencer, which is equal. That's the non-linear. The collective perspective of this infinite plane of existence is the linear conscious perspective. But the individual will always be the infinite soul. So we all have reflections, consciousness, vibrations of linear and nonlinear. The earth has a nonlinear and a linear perspective. So the physical experience is the linear plane of existence, but the essence, the soul of the earth is the nonlinear infinite space of it all. So we are collected in one area of this infinite plane of existence, which has created an experience for all of us to experience. So going back to a consciousness in a sense. So the so-called powers that be had realized that it's really based upon how you experience the experiencer, not so much about the experience from an external perspective. But if you can manipulate both the experiencer, the internal and the external, that's what makes you a king and a god, because you have manipulated people to completely give their entire experience away to the illusion of, for example, the heliocentric model, the illusion of the Stockholm syndrome. It's the same thing, like power, control, hopelessness, helplessness, powerlessness. So all of these are designed to keep people at a particular level of consciousness, and within that level of consciousness, on a particular way of experiencing their reality from a linear perspective. So the nonlinear or the soul essence gets lost. So back to the plane of existence. The plane of existence, how I see it when people talk about when they go up in a plane and the horizon rises to your eye level. This goes back to it's because how I see that is because this is an infinite plane of existence, and the experience that you, just like an individual, the balance is between the conscious and the subconscious. I know I'm all over the place right now, but people who have listened to my videos before know I'm like that in certain videos. So anyway, there is a dance between the linear and the nonlinear, the conscious and the subconscious. So it's what's the word? Ultimately, it's too much energy to comprehend infinity in one moment. You're not going to have an experience. That's like the dream space. This is why you have to have the waking space. Like you wake up for a dream. You have to have the balance of both. So the infinite plane, what I'm saying is the infinite plane, whatever that experience is, largely will not manifest itself until you or a collection of yous will get to that place and experience that, whatever that is. And then you create a consciousness of that experience. Just like the heliocentric model is a synthetic consciousness of this infinite plane of existence from a bass-ackwards illusion. So that relates to the tree falling in the forest and whether or not it makes a sound or not. Well, like I said, the tree itself is falling, and does it have ears? Like whatever it is, it's going to make a vibration. Falling is an energy. Listening to that or experiencing that energy, the tree is experiencing that energy. Does it need other people to validate whether or not that tree is experiencing that energy? No. It's experiencing the energy whether you like it or not, whether you hear it or not. So that's what I'm saying is the experiencer. And why we are cut off in reference to there being more land in this infinite plane of existence outside of the ice circle is because it limits your perspective. It limits your potential. It limits and in order for you to have true free will, you have to unlock that potentiality. You have to lock that knowledge and understanding on your own. And if people or beings or entities that don't give a shit about the universal laws of our reality and the connections to the soul essence and the Most High, then those entities or beings will do whatever they can to make a profit off of your ignorance. So this is where we have the haves and the have-nots program and what's going on today. And if you were aware of the infinite non-physical experience that you exist as, then there's a small percentage chance that you would be able to be dominated and controlled. And like I said before, that's based upon your level of consciousness, individually and collectively. So collectively, our level of consciousness was only allowed, was allowing itself to be tricked by these illusions. But like you said, like a child, like you can trick a child with a magic trick. But when you get older, that used to be child will look at a magic trick that used to trick that child back in the day and be like, oh man, I can't believe I used to believe that. It's the same thing. This is why the public education system exists the way it does, is because it maintains the adolescent, otherwise childlike mentality. This is why we have so much focus on the physical reality, the reproductive program, the vanity program, the celebrityism, the Hollywood actors, the politics, the award shows, the late night talk shows. The materialism version of reality maintains a particular level of consciousness that doesn't focus on the non-physical reality at all. In fact, it acts like it doesn't exist, because the only thing that matters is what comes from your so-called success in the monetary system, in the mainstream media, trying to be famous and all that other stuff. This is all the synthetic universe, the synthetic reality, and all of it's connected. So it's so compartmentalized that it's not like certain people, like everybody's in on it. Certain people are in on it, but like everybody in the pyramid of knowledge or understanding, not everybody's going to know what the next level up knows. They'll just know whatever it is they know right now. Like, for example, for me, like when I was at a level of consciousness of thinking that I just needed to, make a living for myself and survive at 17 years old, I went into the army. Then I got smarter and then I got out, but I didn't really raise my level of consciousness because I was still thinking on a particular level. Then I actually went back in, and that's when I started to research the reality and see like this is the entire plane of existence, or this not the entire plane, this entire consciousness, the human consciousness is subjected to a military industrial consciousness. And it's not just in the military, it's that mentality is in the people. It's just not labeled as such. So when I got out, that's when I started to connect the dots between all of this stuff and how all of this fits together in relation to controlling people, because that's how they control soldiers, with fear and your contract and toys, like pay, get a nice car. Like it's very materialistic. It's all about your car. It's all about, your house. It's all about this and that, largely because everybody's just a slave. So that's your way of expressing your idea of free will, is to get a nice car, drive a nice car, have a family, and just be rich in the poorest place that you could be consciously. A slave, signing a contract of your life away to the military. Like that's, yeah. So this is what's happening in the fiat currency system illusion, the legal name for the birth certificate, social security program, the maritime admiralty system. This is just another version of the military contract of signing your life away to the government. So the going into the military is like double signing it away. It's like officially signing your physical life away as a form of, in reference to the birth certificate program, which is signing your soul essence away. It's like an invisible contract based upon the synthetic universe of debt that this system needs to survive. So since your level of consciousness has just believed it for so many years, then that's just how it is. It's just like, okay, well, since my grandmother and my great-grandmother, my great-great-great-great-great-grandparents have all done this, then, this is just the way you do it. And since I got to survive, then I'll just do it. But so these are just all the layers of the synthetic version of experiencing your reality. Turning the inside out. Turning the inside out. That's what this is all about. And once you're turned inside out, your perspective of reality is completely upside down and backwards. It's you don't know what the inside is anymore because you're totally outside in now. And your in is even outside. If you have an in, you don't have an in because it's not taboo, or it's not known, or it's acting like it doesn't exist. Like your dreams don't exist really because we've been turned inside out. So to the plane of existence, back to this, and I guess I want to close on it because this is ultimately what I really wanted to talk about. How I'm seeing the plane of existence and like, for example, if there are other lands on the other side of the ice sheet, and that is an experience. It could be like another Earth with all these continents just in another place, another ice circle. And there's nobody there. So you show up there with a group of people on a whole bunch of planes, and you get there. You now have a relationship. The group of people have a relationship with that place, consciously and subconsciously. So who's to say that like did it exist there before you got there? That's like one question. And then that goes back to the other experiencer. Who's the experiencer to say whether it existed or not? And then on top of that, what happens when you do get there? Do you change it just by your arriving there? Does something shift by you getting there? So this is what I'm going back into, like saying that the edge of like the infinite, the edge of infinity. The how would we know? And that's the thing. If you did know everything, you wouldn't be having an experience. So this goes back into the infinite space of the subconscious. So I'm just kind of like throwing all this stuff. This is kind of why I wanted to make this video anyway. It's not really for anything other than to expand on some topics that we talk about on the outskirts every now and again, but just sharing from how I kind of interpret what's going on here. And where I'm coming from in reference to the flat earth realm, the infinite plane of existence, and how we experience our reality as a whole. So I guess the entire meaning or purpose of this video is just to go on a little riff of that question, and just see what comes out. So I don't really have like a closing statement. So with that, thank you for joining me, and until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.